Whoop.
Morning, John.
Hi. I'm trying hard to make that a thing.
Morning, Wendy.
My cat's going nuts here.
Good morning.
Morning, Kelly.
Morning.
This might be the last time we're allowed to do this by Zoom, if I understand the September 30th deadline.
I have a
Sounds good to
feeling
me.
any sort of deadline is going to be extended.
That's a pretty good bet. As I understand it, those are the current rules. We know in this time the rules have a tendency to change.
Yeah.
Am I leading this meeting this morning or is Rich doing that? I don't
You
remember.
got it.
Okay. All right. Well, are we all here? Let's see.
Feels like it.
Okay. Change my view. Oh, there's Carmen. Okay, perfect. All right. Well, then if we're all here, let's go ahead and get started. It is 8:31. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our City School Liaison Committee meeting. I'd like to officially welcome Dr. Carmen Garcia to her first meeting with us. Yay. Okay, so I don't know if we have any requests for public comment. I don't. Let's see.
We don't have any hands up right now.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for that confirmation. Moving along, approval of the minutes from our June 17th meeting. Hopefully everybody got a chance to read over the minutes, and if so, would love to entertain a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Thank you,
Second.
Mr. McKay, and thank you, Mayor Constantine. All right, so all in favor of, should we do a roll call vote for this? Yes, okay. Can we go ahead with the roll call vote?
Mayor Constantine,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem McKay,
Aye.
President Sullivan,
Aye.
Board Member Horner.
Was that an aye? I didn't hear you very well, John.
Aye.
Thank
Aye.
you. All right, so that was approved unanimously. Thank you very much. And we are now on to our City of Morgan Hill business. And so first up is our COVID and reopening update. And I'd love to invite City Manager Turner to share with us.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. So I wanted to just give a little update about reopening and kind of where we're at and where we're headed. So we did a sort of soft opening of City Hall on July the 6th, so right after the Independence Day. And so we're open 4 days a week for 4 hours, primarily to receive utility payments, but then also to have teammates that are there to help navigate individuals to certain online services. We've been able to do most services online, and some people just really want to have that personal touch. And so they're able to come into City Hall and get taken care of. And originally we had anticipated bringing back all the remaining teammates on August the 30th, and then right after Labor Day, opening back up full time. And with the increase in cases in the Delta variant and the like, we've pushed that out a month. And so we're looking at September 27th and then full reopening to the public on the 4th, and once again, watching, very closely how things go. We do have many teammates, of course, that have worked on site throughout, but I wanted to let everybody know about that. Chris, do you want to just say a couple words just about recreation and how things are going from a COVID perspective?
Sure, Christina. Yeah, the recreation facilities are all open with restrictions, and actually until the mask requirement came out a few weeks ago, we had seen use really moving upwards, and now it's kind of flattened off for use, but actually running pretty safely, and no major incidents with the use that we do have.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you. So as far as public meetings go, so we are currently doing Zoom, and we're getting our council chambers ready for the ability to do hybrid. And so initially we had thought our first meeting would be September 1st. And so that's going to be pushed out, but the technology should be up and ready and available to do hybrid seamlessly. And so we're just going to continue to monitor things. And at this point, masks are required for everybody indoors. And so I think that raises some issues. I know, you guys have decided to go back in person, but for now we're going to continue Zoom, until things settle down a bit as far as COVID numbers go. And that kind of concludes what I wanted to share and what we wanted to share on this item.
Fantastic. Any questions? All right, moving right along. City construction project update.
Great, thank you. Well, we wanted to just take the opportunity to talk about some of the projects that we have going on right now. There's quite a few, and some of them are going to be long-term projects and some of them are going to be wrapping up. And so Chris is going to share a presentation with this group, focusing primarily on the ones that are closer to schools or might have an impact on schools, and then just kind of touch on some of the other projects that are happening citywide. And so Chris, I think you should be able to share. If not, let us know and we'll make sure you have those permissions.
You're muted, Chris.
Word of the year.
Had to unmute myself from the little box as I shared my screen. I could not find my mute button at the bottom of my screen anymore. Sorry. So I'm going to run through just individual projects. If anyone has questions on any projects, please just ask me during the presentation, so we don't have to jump backwards, if that's okay, of course, with the chair. And some of these have more specific school related, and some are just general information I know people want to hear about. So I'm going to start on the kind of park side, and then move over to more of the streets and roads side. So the first project I want to talk about is our Magical Bridge inclusive playground. That project's been under construction for nearly a year and a half. It's far behind schedule due to COVID delays, but we expect completion in October or November. For the school district, this is especially pertinent as we had funding from the County Office of Education to build what's called an outdoor classroom. And I know probably everyone on the school district side is aware of this. This is a rendering. The outdoor classroom is the little area on the far left. And it will be a space kind of outside the main playground where classes can do activities there, run a class there, and then of course let the kids go participate in the playground. It is with our funding agreement with the County Office of Ed, schools get to use it at no charge on regular school days or other days if they can get over there. So we think that's going to be exciting, and we're hopefully nearing completion if we don't see any other unforeseen problems with the project. I just wanted to hit on Galvin Park real quick, not super relevant to schools, but of course next to Walsh. I mean, we've just had an abundance of volunteer work happening there, and it's really helped the park. So if you haven't been to Galvin Park, go check it out. The Rotary Club did a whole bunch. The South County Youth Task Force is working with a Beautiful Day Committee. So they have an event scheduled on the 9th and 10th to do even more cleaning. And then the council has kind of directed staff to look at replacing the restroom there. So we're going to be working on that. We're bringing that back to council for discussion. This one is the Jackson Park expansion. This one is important to the school district, as Jackson Park is adjacent to Jackson School. And this project is a development related project where the developer, if the Hill and Barrett development goes forward, would expand Jackson Park and actually double the size of the park, and provide some parking and tennis courts, pickleball courts, walking paths, and really increase the size of the park. We have had past discussions with Morgan Hill Unified staff on this, and the timing on this and really completing final designs of this is kind of unknown at this time. We're getting concepts on the park expansion from the developer and talking about those with our commission, with our staff, but no, there's no formal final design or anything like that approved. That would come through the development process. This is a park project. We have applied for an $8.5 million grant to build a park just south of Butterfield Boulevard near Watsonville and Monterey Road, that intersection. It's outlined in yellow there. We're awaiting the grant awards to see if we'll get this grant. It's a very competitive Prop 68 grant process across the state. Now I'm going to skip forward. Sorry about that. And this is just a layout of what the park looked like. And there would be a baseball field there. We've been talking to both the baseball groups about how they can participate in that, both Pony and Dub baseball as well. We've had past conversations with the softball group as well. Now the council just approved purchasing adjacent to the 8 acres where that the city owns, that park would be built if we got the grant. The city council just approved purchasing close to 20 more acres, which would create a site that's close to 28 acres and potentially be used for planned ball fields down the road. And of course, the school district might take interest in this because our local users might have this as a space that they can use as well, where right now they rely on primarily all school fields for their baseball and field use, baseball and softball field use. This one probably doesn't have too much to do with schools at all, but everyone always asks me what's going on with this project. And this is a trail to the top of El Toro. And we, a couple of years ago, acquired property near Main Avenue, Main Alkire avenues to build a community access without parking. Now, we have an access strategy that says we are not going to open a trail until we have something that can be used for parking so the neighborhoods aren't overwhelmed. So we're focusing right now on access easements and potential parking from the south kind of side of the area, which would be near DeWitt and Spring Avenues. And we have made some progress there with some of the private property owners, but nothing to report. We hope that there'll be reportable news before the end of the year. But as we negotiate on these things, we really work with willing property owners. So there's no set time frame for us to say when this will be completed, but we are continuing to make progress on this one. Just wanted to talk about this one briefly. I know many of some of the school programs use our outdoor sports center. The outdoor sports center has had a new operator for the last 3 years. It's been a little bit quiet because of COVID, but even though the use has been a little quieter, they've helped. We've got to do some major improvements to the facility that are actually really helpful. The city worked with the development next door, and we've installed 2 more lighted fields in the past couple of years on the grass fields, which really helps a lot of the youth sports groups because previously we only had the lighted fields on the artificial turf. And then our partners at the MHOSC group have installed this concrete walking path down the middle of the facility that makes the whole facility much more accessible to everyone and really helps for tournament events. And then they just recently installed in-ground irrigation on the whole southern side of the field. And so they've made close to $400,000 in investments through that partnership, even though they don't have any use. So the sports center's in pretty good shape from a capital perspective. You'll still see some of the grass being a little brown, and that's because of the water restrictions we have, not because the sprinklers aren't working. And then just 2 nights ago or 2 days ago, the council approved the city moving forward with the Condit Road Sports Master Plan. So this is following up to our Parks and Rec Master Plan to really develop a master plan for improving the area near the Outdoor Sports Center and the Aquatic Center. And if you'll see, that yellow line is a little farther than just those facilities, and those are additional property the city owns, about 14 acres in addition to the existing built out properties. So that master plan process would start this fall. And we expect to have community engagement as well as definitely engagement from Morgan Hill Unified on that planning. This one is our West Little Yagas Creek Trail. Just talk through it quickly. We've got several grants on this, and we will be constructing from Watsonville Road south to Silvera Lake this fall. Actually, Valley Water will be constructing it for us through a reimbursement agreement. And then we have one more section to do up north between Spring and Cialino, and that's timing to be determined based on Valley Water's next phase of their flood control project. This is how the trail will look south of Watsonville. On the left side where you see the yellow, that's where the trail currently ends at Watsonville. And this is where the trail would continue on with kind of 2 spurs going off at middle, one kind of towards the lake where it kind of will dead end, and the other one will connect with a little potential entry on Watsonville Road. The long-term vision would actually have the trail go on the south side of the lake, but we need to figure out how we get across the creek right now because it requires a bridge, which is really expensive. This project, I think people have seen the work happening on Butterfield, and this is a Butterfield linear path, and this project is nearing completion. This will creates a kind of class 1 bike trail next to the path that goes from San Pedro down to the new community garden site at Butterfield. The project started from the south and has worked its way north, and they're working on the last section near San Pedro to be completed within probably the next 3 weeks. They'll be out of there, and all the construction on Butterfield will be done with the exception of potential tree planting that will still happen, but won't block the roadway. This is a project that got finished some time ago, but we're so proud of it that we show it. This is the Main Avenue bike lanes, and actually it's more than just bike lanes. We actually filled in a sidewalk area right next to El Toro School, so the kids can access the school better. That little tiny section where it says road widening was the most difficult part of this project. It took years and years to get the property done to get that sidewalk in, and you can see this is kind of a picture from the overpass near 101 and how the road's been improved to help bikes move towards the downtown. This kind of, the main bike lanes kind of relate to this very next project. This is our Madrone Channel Trail. And this is a channel right near Highway 101. Our bike and ped advocacy group has been advocating for improvements here. And the plan is to put a multi-use paved trail so people can get from the north and south end on the east side of 101. We have paved that first section between Cochran Avenue and Main Avenue, and we have most of the grant funding to do the second phase, which is from Main Avenue south to Tennant Avenue, and we're working on design of that and expect construction of that side to happen in the fall. And Hale Avenue Extension, this is a project we've talked about a lot, and this is a roadway that will connect Hale Avenue to the intersection of Spring and DeWitt. And this will be a project that really does help Morgan Hill Unified, especially PA Walsh, as it will take all the cut through traffic off of Main Avenue and Peak Avenue and put it on this new roadway through here. So this project's being built in two phases, two sections. One project, the area outside the circle, the city is doing that project on our own, and that project will be completed in the next year. It's well underway. I think many of you have seen the trucks being pulled off of Dunn with lots of dirt. Most of the dirt removal is done, so we shouldn't see any big trucks there, but we'll continue to see construction of that project for the next year as the roadway goes in. It will also have a multi-use trail on the east side of it for pedestrians and bicyclists to use this. There'll be a roundabout at West Dunn where you see lots of the K-rail out right now, the white barricades. And the area in red is really kind of the separate project because Valley Water is working on the flood control project in that same area. And they're building a tunnel under Nob Hill, which will prevent as well as other improvements, which ultimately down the road will prevent all the flooding from happening in downtown, Wright Avenue, and everywhere. It'll just be, it'll take it all away. So that project is underway as well. It's a 3-year project to complete what they're calling phase 2A of the flood control project. And so that we expect the roadway portion to not be finished until 2023 at the soonest. In this project, north of Main Avenue, there is going to be some work with the phase 2A project. The phase 2B project is something that is not funded yet, but Valley Water's working on funding, and they think that they will have that funding to do phase 2B, which would put the creek that's next to Hale Avenue and right next to Britton School underground into a box culvert that's needed to prevent the flooding. But what that will also do when phase 2B occurs is allow us to put an entrance to the Britton kind of warehouses and shop area off of Hale Avenue. So that's been designed and worked out. We worked with the staff at the school district to design that, but that phase is not funded yet. So it's probably 2 to 3 years down the road before that portion happens and we get to phase 2B. As everyone's aware, we have lots of pavement being repaired through the city. So we have appreciated everyone's patience. That project, the asphalt portion is all done except for a little portion on Tennant Avenue that's happening overnight right now. But all the asphalt has been poured. Now what they're doing, you'll see construction out there for the next week or so. They're doing what's called raising iron. We actually, the treatment we use to pave the roads requires us to drop the level of all the manholes. So as the grinder comes through, they aren't damaged, either the equipment or the manholes. And now they're lifting all those manholes back up. So you'll see them out there working on little circles for the next week or so. And then also in the next week and a half, you'll see all the permanent striping go back in. Right now you see some of the temporary striping. We did work with the school district staff to try and negate the impacts. It really was our hope to finish this project before school started. That's always our hope. Our pavement projects are getting bigger and bigger because we've had some additional investment. And unfortunately, every other city in the county tries to do the same thing and finish it during the summer. So last time we ended up doing our project completely during the school year. I know doing it during school starting wasn't optimal, and we'll continue to try and do better, but it's a big contest now because lots of people have paving money to try and squeeze everyone in during that short time period. But the project will be completed in the next couple weeks. Britton offsite improvements, also a project we were hoping to finish a majority of it before school started. There's no way to do it just during the summer. The project was too big. The yellow section on Central Avenue was substantially completed the day before school started. And thanks to the MHUSD staff for helping us kind of do that. We were able to preserve all the trees in that project, which we weren't originally thinking we were able to do, which I think made a lot of people happy. And that put a new sidewalk in where there was no sidewalk before on Central Avenue. That project was grant funded with CDBG funds. And then on 2 Saturdays, on the Saturdays, we actually paved Central Avenue and Parkway, which were two streets that weren't in the pavement project, But since we were out there, we were able to, we had enough contingency funding to do both of those. So Central Avenue is completely repaved. And then the frontage on Monterey, that's going to be worked on over the next month. They're putting out forms now for the new sidewalk. And that was a good project. The city was able to help with that. If you didn't see it before it was removed, there were all kinds of old driveways and things that Britain had put in over the years and then stopped using and fenced. And then the school district's project actually kind of tore up that entire sidewalk. And then our project to replace it, we were able to kind of save the school district some dollars on having to replace that sidewalk by us upgrading the sidewalk, undergrounding, and we will be undergrounding the overhead lines and really extending how downtown looks in front of Britain with Sternberg poles and trees. So it should make the beautiful campus at Britain even more beautiful when this project's done. And then I'll just note the little square up in, that is the intersection of Wright and Del Monte. And that's a pedestrian improvement, pedestrian safety improvement we've put in to help students that are coming that way to reach Britain. We're putting what are called bulb outs, which make the road a little less wide for people to cross, and a rectangular rapid flashing beacon, which are those safety lights that people can hit the button and then cross that crosswalk. And that's been on our list to get done to help students get to school for some time. And the last one I'll talk about is our downtown lane reduction and traffic calming item, which our council is well aware of, coming back to them. So the council has approved the city to work on designs and the planning for traffic mitigations as well as beautification for downtown. We will be back to the council in October for the council to review the design work that we've done, and the council would make a decision on moving that project forward. And that concludes my report. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Wow. Thank you, Chris. That's a lot. You guys have certainly been busy. I see Trustee Horner has a question.
Yes. Thank you, President Sullivan, and thank you very much, Chris. Boy, what a comprehensive report, and it's just a delight how thoughtful you are about the work the city's doing and how that intersects with our schools and students and families, and the clear consideration and thought given there is. I want to start with a big compliment for that, and all those folks on Nextdoor. I wish they would watch this report, because according to the uninformed, it's like, why didn't they think about this? It's like, well, you've thought about a lot. My specific question, I can't remember now if it was Jackson Park or another, maybe Nordstrom. There was an issue we talked about some time ago where there were some odd boundary line issues between the school and the city park. Was that a Jackson or Nordstrom, or and has that been sorted out in this? Well, that the Jackson item reminded me that there was something weird kind of going back to the peculiarities of history, where there was like one part of what we think of as a school site was actually city land, and then a part of what we thought of as a park was actually school land. I'm fuzzy, but I'm sure you remember it much better than I do.
Yeah, and in fact, it really isn't the property line with the city. It's the property line with that developer.
Oh, okay.
But I know he has been working with MHUSD staff, and through that development happening, I believe he's going to work to get the school that kind of cleared up. And that's my.
Was that at Jackson as part
Jackson.
of that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Jackson.
So my fuzzy wasn't too fuzzy. I thought it was Jackson.
Yeah, and I'm not privy to those complete details, because I know he's working with the team over there. But I know we have another meeting coming up with him and I think Superintendent Garcia in the next month or so.
Okay, wonderful. And then on the other work, I know one of my colleagues, Heather Orozco, I think reached out to Chief Palsgrove a while ago, with some concerns around PA Walsh, which I think, and I don't know if we're going to talk about that later, but I'm just kind of wondering, as we're getting back to school, and I know we've had at least one incident of two parents getting into a fender bender in front of school. People are not accustomed to doing what they used to be accustomed to, and safety at pickup and drop off has always been a problem here and everywhere. So I don't know if at some point today we'll get a little bit of an update on that topic.
I'll let the chief answer that since you asked him the question.
Yeah.
Do
Yes.
we want to
we'll
cover
touch
that
on that.
under the police department update, John?
We'll come to that. That's great. Thank you very much. And thanks again for all the work. I can't wait to use some of those new trails.
Councilmember McKay?
Thank you, President Sullivan. And yeah, great report, Chris. I mean, there's that saying, Rolling Stones gather no moss. And I tell you, there's no moss on any of the work that you're doing. It's just incredible. So I have a few questions. Hopefully they're quick. The first is, Jackson Park could be a wonderful new amenity. But what happens if the development isn't approved? Are there plans to in any way acquire that and continue with interest in making a park out of that?
It is in our master plan to do it without the development. How feasible it is to be seen. I think with the development, the developer has requirements to do things for parks. Without the development, that land as its current zoning has potentially a lot of value. So it might be difficult for us to figure that out without the development. However, if the development just stopped, we would continue to see if there's a path forward with maybe grant funding or some other partnership. But it is in our master plan to expand that. And we do want to, and we have worked with the staff at Morgan Hill Unified on that. So it is something we want to keep going. How feasible it is, I can't say.
Okay, now there's actually a gate in the fence between the school property and the park at this point, if I remember correctly. So, okay, so that there would be ready access for students to get through there, either for, the commute to their house or overflow playground. So, okay, that's of interest to me. The West Williagas Creek Trail, it looks like we're on the verge of having one continuous trail that could go from Coyote Creek Trail Park, I believe it's called, that comes all the way from San Jose all the way to the southern end of Morgan Hill. It looks like the only piece that might be missing now is that section. It ends, I guess, at Maine. No, it ends at Maine right now. If I not Maine, Done. So will you actually consider, if the traffic calming goes through, will you consider that to be basically almost the completion of that entire trail?
Yeah, there's a couple little pieces, like I mentioned, Ciolino to Spring, and then behind the shopping center. I think what we would like to do is, and then we actually need to improve the bike lanes from Butterfield on Main over to the downtown, as well as the downtown, to build that kind of like bike corridor through the whole city. So there's a little more work than just that section, but we are getting closer.
Okay, great. Now that's my perspective is that gives families a safe route to ride bicycles on, and that's one of the things that we have an issue with in Morgan Hill is we don't have a lot of well-connected bike paths. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that might evolve. Last question is Hale. The Hale extension, the final alignment to Edmondson. What's the progress on that? Any timeline and when that'll complete it? Because that's really the key in the end to completing that extension.
No timeline. It could be a county. It's in the county. It's been thought to be a county project. If the city doesn't have grant funding, we won't be able to participate in supporting it. Although we have started doing some work in legislation and discussions with VTA to lay the groundwork to potentially fund design and portions of that on our end as a city, because the county doesn't necessarily have the priority interest that we do. So we have been continuing to take steps on that, but no timeline.
Okay, would it help if this members of this body, both of the Unified School Districts Board and then our council, write letters to our county supervisor and whoever else, or is that already well underway?
I think it never hurts to remind people that that's on our mind. That the key component for us is always getting it in our regional and like state planning documents so that we're eligible for grant funding. So there's always timing on those things, but I think making sure that our elected officials at the county, as well as, we have one elected official with VTA, but the VTA staff and VTA board know that that's an important thing, I think will help us in the future. So I don't think it ever hurts.
Okay, thank you very much, Chris. Great report. Thank you.
I know Mayor Constantine, your hand's been up. John, I saw your hand just pop up. Did you have a comment on this last topic that John and Chris are talking about, or do you have a separate question?
No, on just a real quick follow-up to John McKay's, I think some joint advocacy there is a wonderful idea. I don't recall a time where we've ever kind of jointly as city council and school board members signed a joint letter on something. But I think, in this case, that would be a great thing to do. And I just want to offer, I'd be happy to work with you, John, if you wanted to kind of craft something together that we could then circulate to our colleagues or whatever the appropriate process is. But I think it would be powerful to send a joint statement on that. And I hadn't really thought about it until you mentioned it. So yeah, that's my thumbs up to the idea and my offer to work on it with you.
Thank you for the suggestion, John. And you guys seem like you both agreed. I saw the thumbs up. So thank you for tackling that. Look forward to seeing something come from the both of you.
Let the minutes show it. So the two Johns will work on it, I guess.
Yes. John squared. Thank you very much. Okay, Mayor Constantine.
Thank you, Madam President. Chris, in regards to the Hale Avenue extension and Valley of Water's portion of their construction project, is there any, one, are they on time? And two, are they aware that their completion of the portion by the PG&E area and Maine is important to our completion of the road?
Yes and yes, 100%. And we are treating that like it's our project. So we have the same project manager, Dave Gittleson, is managing both from our end, and we are actively engaged with them at every step of the project. And David and both our city engineer are meeting with them weekly. We know this is one of the biggest priorities we have. So we are pushing, and we are very hopeful that the contractor, Flatiron, wants to be done way sooner than the project schedule. And so they've done a lot of stuff, and we'll start seeing work at that intersection of Main and Hale for the undergrounding, which is the first phase of this stuff happening real quick here. If you drive by it, you've seen they've cleared out the whole area, and they are starting a lot of work. So they are on time.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Madam President.
No problem. All right, thank you. Thanks, Chris, again, for that really thorough update on all the work that you guys are up to. And thank you to my colleagues on this committee for your questions. Moving along on the agenda, we are now at our police department update. Chief Pelsgrove.
Yes, traffic is the #1 topic of discussion. It's been great having the schools work with us. I think with COVID and people not wanting to carpool, I think that perhaps the reduction in people taking the bus just put more traffic on the road. And so the schools have been working to mitigate the problem. And then our police officers have been sharing their experience and the information that they've been receiving with the schools. And together we've been able to work out some traffic improvement plans. So it appears that the little adjustments that we were making started making a big difference. And then I think the last adjustment for Live Oak High School happened yesterday, and traffic was again improved. So we'll be out there again today, taking a look at some of those streets, making sure that those traffic plans are working. We also have issues at Sobrato, not so much PA Walsh, but at St. Catharines. So I'm confident that our teams are going to be working to resolve those issues. As far as youth crime, crime in general is trending at average with the 3-year average. Some of the trends that we're seeing are increases in catalytic converter thefts of higher end bicycles, and organized retail crime. And we still get a significant number of mental health calls for service, but we are working with Behavioral Health Center and our clinicians to start addressing some of those chronic complaints. As you saw, we had a town hall meeting where we got the community's input and shared information on the flock camera systems. That's an automated license plate reader. We'll be installing 25 of those on a pilot program for the next 30 days. I believe they should be going up. They were supposed to be up 2 weeks ago, but hopefully they'll be going up next week with the delays of, well, not permits, but just the install. So those will alert us to real-time crime situations where people are using stolen cars in town to often commit other crimes. And they will also provide us with a research tool when we're investigating some serious crimes. All that information on flock camera system, our PowerPoint, frequently asked questions, the location of those cameras, and much more can be located on our website under the police department's tab there. And there's a section off to the side that says flock. Our youth diversion program, we're excited to get that going next month in September. We're in partnership with community-based organizations and our district attorney's office to divert youth crimes and arrests to keeping them here locally in our community, not referring them to the probation department or in custody in jails, and having them be held accountable for their wrongdoing, but while providing them the structure for them to be successful later on in life. Overall, our youth crime is down. We've had 21 youth calls for service involving youth for mental health calls between January and now. Our school resource officer will begin setting up meetings with school staff and providing training about the role of the school resource officer in accordance with the new MOU. And he'll begin researching other school resource officer programs to ensure we are following best practices and keep the things that he's doing fresh and up to date with our community's expectations. And there are no issues to report for the first 4 days of school. And our school resource officer will be providing Run, Hide, Defend training, as well as Parent Project in September. And we will be coming back to this group and others to identify things that we would like to track in our diversion program. And I'm also interested to hear if there are any other youth information that you'd like for me to report back on as it relates to the police department. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Chief Pelsgrove. Trustee Horner?
Thank you again, President Sullivan. And thank you, Chief Pelsgrove, for the great report. I'm wondering if you could give us a little insight into the activities of the tobacco officer. As I understand it, that's a role that we used to have kind of focused on campus. There were some changes there. The city, as I understand it, did receive the grant money for a youth tobacco, officer. I'm not sure if that's the right term. That's working primarily off campus. So since that's youth focused, perhaps you could give us a little insight into the activities of that person.
Thank you. I did skip over that one. Our community tobacco officer is ensuring that the businesses in town are not that they've been provided education, that they're not selling tobacco products to youth, that they're in compliance with our city ordinances. He is doing sting operations to ensure that businesses are not selling to youth. He's attending community events, providing education on the dangers of vaping, and that was it.
Thank you very much.
Councilmember McKay?
Thank you, President Sullivan. Chief, great. Always on top of things. Expect nothing less. Question for you, and this is kind of going to be a broad question, and this kind of will show you that I'm still the freshman here in this in this setting. We've gotten, over the years, including when I was a planning commissioner, was something that we talked about, and that is the traffic around schools. It seems like we develop hotspots and then we address them. Nordstrom School was quite the hotspot for a while. I know that Jackson Oaks Elementary, or whatever it's called now, I'm sorry. All these schools have their traffic issues. Is there really a way that we've been formulating an overall plan on how we move traffic around those areas? Or is there an element of we just have to accept the fact that there's going to be a lot of congestion because of that one moment in time when everybody converges at the one place, and it's unfeasible to create, standby, traffic lanes and all that? Where are we at realistically with this? Is this will be a never-ending game of kind of chase where the hotspot is?
So the traffic mitigation plan for schools is the school district's responsibility. So the police department or the city can't really go in and dictate the school routes to drop off and pick up. However, since it does impact everybody, we do work in partnership to come up with the best solution. Some of those solutions require some construction that is above my level. I'm sure Chris and the school can speak to that. But I think that there are these constant variables that arise, such as the impacts that COVID has, construction, just miscellaneous events like that impact parents' routes to schools. And so we've been good at pivoting and adjusting routes to ensure that traffic continues to flow, that safety is taken into consideration. And I think we not having to deal with some of the variables that occurred this year, I think it just took a little bit of time for us to iron out.
If I could add, council member, so over the last half of a decade, we've worked with Morgan Hill Unified on the engineering side for drop-off zones, and even help fund different things. The perfect example is the plan that was developed at PA Walsh to add the drop-off and improvements on the peak side, which have really helped make that drop-off and pick up really, really good when it used to be a problem, if everyone remembers. And then we've had the same discussion at Jackson and Nordstrom. We haven't figured it out. We also worked on the potential new site, the Borello site, on what we thought would be the best to mitigate that before it came forward. So we have those ongoing discussions, and we look at, from an engineering side, the specific problems of each school site, because they're all different.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I know that this is kind of a hot button issue, and it's kind of difficult, right? It's a reality, and we have limited ability to really address it in just a highly impactful manner. And it sounds like this optimization that's taking place is really being quite helpful. PA Walsh being an example. So I just wonder, if there's an overall program of optimization of drop-off, stacking, how cars are stacked out on the road, giving as much clear identification that cars are stopped and dropping off kids versus, they're part of the, merge or something like that for another intersection. I know it's a difficult thing. And so I just thought it'd be great if we're honest with the community and say, look, we're doing our best. We're working on it. And this is the success of our schools. Everybody's going to school, and there's going to be congestion. Just let's be honest about that. Anyway, just wanted to bring that up. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember McKay. Trustee Horner?
Yeah, just a brief response again. Thank you, John. It's both things are true. People need to be patient and thoughtful and understanding, and site by site we'll constantly have to work together to make improvements. But this is one of those issues that will forever need to be managed and will never be solved. It's just not just like any traffic issue or all those kind of things. But yeah, everything we can do to remind the public, it's like, hey, it's not going to kill you to slow down for 30 seconds, but it might kill a kid if you act like an idiot. So, I'm using kind of dramatic language, but that really is the situation. And it's a place where, I've been on this committee for a couple of years now, and the level of work between the two staffs on this issue and making real and meaningful improvements, and the level of support from the police department, and doing what they can from a traffic flow and enforcement point of view, and it's all quite exemplary, but it's all part of our jobs. This is something that will always have to be managed, and everything we can do to encourage our friends and neighbors to slow down and be patient and be careful is a good thing.
And thank you for that, because, I'm the new guy, so I might be rocking the boat just a touch unintentionally. But
No, there's no problem. I'm
Great.
not being defensive. I'm just saying you're right. We're never going to fix this, and we're always going to be making it better.
Oh yeah, I absolutely agree, and I appreciate it. Thanks.
Fantastic. Thank you, City Manager Turner and your staff for all your great reports. This concludes the updates for the City of Morgan Hill. So we're going to move right along to our Morgan Hill Unified School District business. And Superintendent Garcia, you'd like to kick off our COVID and return to school update. You're muted.
Sorry, a bit of technical difficulties. Let me go. I apologize. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, President Sullivan. I am delighted to join my very first official City School Liaison Committee meeting, and wanted to share just briefly about my listening, reading, and learning sessions. I've met with the majority of you on a one-to-one basis, at least those that are attending today's meeting, and I'll see Chris later on at Community Asset Builders at noon. So I have been meeting with dozens and dozens and dozens community members, and by the time I'm done, I'm hoping to meet with hundreds and thousands. And really, I am listening from an appreciative lens on what we do super well in our district and what we can course correct. And so if I have not met with you, I look forward to meeting with you and to listen and learn from your perspective. We recently had summer graduation. It's never too late to graduate, and these students are a perfect example of resilience and really our system's ability to support them all the way to the end, literally as they walk across the stage. And it was absolutely heartwarming to see our parents right behind the students in a really hot sunny day joining their brand new class of 2021 graduates. We also, on August 9th, officially welcomed back Team Morgan Hill Unified School District. We met at Sobrato. Typically, it's been tradition that we meet inside the gym. This year, with the COVID surge, we decided to play it safe, and so we met in the quad at Sobrato. And so all 800 of us collectively launched our school year, and we're also incredibly delighted to share that we have been very thoughtful in our safety measures. And so we had 3 community forums, 2 in English and Spanish and 1 in Spanish, where we were able to describe to our parents and to our community our welcome back and our safety measures. And so we passed out a 2-pager on what to expect. And so it included, and you see this on the right 2 sides, the middle picture and also the one on the right, our health and safety measures. We are mandating and requiring masks indoor. We are encouraging everyone to wear masks outdoor. They are not mandatory, but we do recommend. And among many other safety measures, we continue to have our hand washing stations, our hand sanitizing stations. And we're also encouraging, while students are indoor, to physically distance as much as possible. We're also eating lunch outdoors to ensure that we maximize our outdoor space. And we also are encouraging the sites, and every site is different, every site is unique. And so that we are also encouraging our sites to use outside learning spaces as much as possible. And on the left-hand side is a more detailed report or outline of what we are doing to secure and ensure safety measures in our schools. Our first day of school was August 12th. And so Chief Palsgrove, apologies in advance, but in your report, you said 4 days of school. We're actually on our 7th day today, a slight correction. So the picture on the right is a kindergartner, and you see the bouquet of flowers that was given to his kinder teacher, Ms. Hill at San Martin Guen. Director Webb took this picture, and I think it is the most heartwarming first day of school picture I've seen in a long while. And here it's a little bit more of a vignette of pictures that we took on the first day of school throughout our campus. And if I can direct your attention to the right-hand side, middle right-hand side, my right-hand side, her name is Jocelyn, and Jocelyn is brand new to our country and brand new to our school. She's a freshman at Live Oak, and I was delighted to have met her and her father in front of Live Oak. They were a little bit frozen, didn't know exactly where to go. And as an experienced administrator, I can pick up on that right away. And so I was able to walk Jocelyn and her dad over to her counselor so that she could take her, so that she could be given her classes. And so these are just, again, a beautiful vignette of our first day of school, and everyone wearing masks. We really, knock on wood, do not really have any issues with mask compliance. We were very clear with our administrators. Every administrator at their respective site has a PBIS, Positive Behavior Interventions and Supports Plan. And so each of our principals were able to work with their staff and their school community to incorporate mask compliance, mask use as part of those PBIS efforts. We also, thanks in 100% to our school board for believing in this grand vision that our Assistant Superintendent Vasquez Villalba has with respect to wellness centers. We have all seen some very, very dramatic and very heart-wrenching statistics on the effects of COVID on our youth, not really just on our youth, but also on the adults, and I would venture to say on all of us. But 1 in 3 high school students in California report that they have chronic sadness. And so it's important for us as a school system to not just focus on academic well-being, but also to be able to respond accordingly. And so Morgan Hill Unified School District's at least one layer of support and a response to address health, mental health well-being is through our wellness centers. And so we officially opened our Britain Wellness Center. We also officially opened our Murphy Wellness Center and our Sobrato Wellness Center. And we have one more wellness center that we will officially open, and it will be next week at Live Oak. We also have back to school and open house dates. We will be sharing this widely across our community. And so we'll be able to, at these back to school and open house events, share with our parents everything that's exciting about our schools. We also have vaccine clinics. Thank you so much to Assistant Superintendent Von Myers for helping us with this vaccine clinic. It's on Tuesday, August 24th. It will be at our district office, and we'll be able to offer Pfizer and also the flu vaccine. We also have weekly COVID testing in addition to requiring that our staff upload proof of their vaccine. And if that is not the case, and we do require that they test weekly, we do offer weekly COVID testing at every site in the district office. And in addition, we have shared the free testing services throughout our community. The Gilroy outlet near Nike has a COVID-19 testing center, and it's the rapid antigen test. Our district is on queue to receive the rapid antigen tests from Q. And so we're hoping to receive those as soon as possible. And also UC Rite Aid and the CVS pharmacy in Morgan Hill, they also do the PCR. We do the PCR tests on a weekly basis, as I mentioned earlier, at every site and at the district office. I now like to hand it over to Assistant Superintendent Von Myers. We have been at the district office and also at the school sites, and perhaps you at the city have been fielding questions, might be fielding questions on the decision tree on when to quarantine and when not to quarantine. Things have dramatically changed from last year. And so Assistant Superintendent Von Myers has a very clear and succinct way of explaining the decision tree for when we ask our children to quarantine.
Thank you, Dr. Garcia. And yes, the CDPH guidelines that were updated July 12th, which really then indicated for us how to create that, what to expect health and safety protocols for our reopening. But they were dramatically different than the spring. And so this flow chart, I don't want to take credit for it. I will go through it, but it has been developed by our county office of education in response to so many questions about the changes. And if you heard in the spring, there was a cohorting model where entire cohorts could go home if there was a positive infection. And that model has dramatically changed. So I'll walk through with this decision tree. But the one thing that is consistent is this. All positive cases, as soon as they are known within our system, whether it's a student or an employee, we ask that it be reported immediately. And of course, the infected person is isolated immediately. If it's a student with symptoms, they are picked up by their parent, we ask that they test and report the results. So as soon as we know we have a positive case, this is the decision tree to identify and contact trace close contacts. And we have been identifying close contacts, and the identification of close contacts has not changed, but the decision who quarantines has. So let me go through this. So we would start right at the top, that red or orange rectangle, and assuming we have a positive case, which is why we would need this decision tree, we go to the next shape. And that's really saying, were there close contacts? So was anyone within 6 feet of this infected person for 15 or more minutes in the last 24 hours? And so for students, for young students, we're relying on seating charts within the school setting. For adults, of course, we ask them directly. If there are no contacts, no close contacts, then of course there are no notifications that need to go to the close contacts. The infected person remains home, but no one else needs any information because there were no close contacts. But it's more often the case, because we're a people business and we do a lot of interacting with one another, that there will be close contacts. And so then we go down to that middle shape. And then the next question we ask is, was the exposed person a student? And if it's no, we go over to the green and we follow the green. If it's yes, then we go over to the blue and we follow the blue. So for a moment, let's just go through the green side. Let's say it's a staff member. And so then the question becomes, was the person vaccinated? And so then that's an easy enough question. With our employees, we have asked every person to provide verification. We can quickly find that information. If they were fully vaccinated, then we go over yes. And then we say, are they symptomatic? And if they're fully vaccinated and they're not symptomatic, then they remain on campus. So let's go over to the no. Is the person not vaccinated? Then we say, are they symptomatic? If they're no, they still would exclude from campus for 10 days without a modification. And if it's yes, they exclude for a full 10 days, no modification. So if they're vaccinated or unvaccinated, if they're symptomatic, of course, they're being excluded. And that's really the answer. If anybody is sick, you stay home. Okay, so let's go back up to the student side. On the student side, if there was a positive case and a student was within 6 feet for 15 or more minutes, then we ask other questions. The next question is the student fully vaccinated? We know that our under 12-year-olds do not yet have the ability. So for young students, we would automatically go to the no side. For our older students, we are asking, are they vaccinated? We do not have verification on file. So let's assume that they're yes, it might be a 12 or older student. Then we ask, are they symptomatic? If they are not symptomatic and they are fully vaccinated, they get to remain on campus. And this is the real big difference from the spring. If they are symptomatic, of course, they go home and they're going to exclude from campus for 10 days. Let's go back up to that first blue shape and ask, are they fully vaccinated? For most of our younger students, the answer right now Really about 6th grade and below is going to be no, because they don't yet have that eligibility. So then we ask, is the student symptomatic? And if they're not symptomatic, if they're yes, they go home and exclude quarantine. If they are not symptomatic, we go down. And this is where masking becomes the real mitigating factor for quarantining, where both the COVID positive and the close contact wearing masks. And if they both were wearing masks, they may remain on campus. And so we go from that like quadrilateral shape back down to the bottom left sort of rounded shape, and they may remain on campus. That's a big shift from the exclude all students for that 10-day quarantine. If they were not both wearing masks, then we do implement the quarantine, but there's a modified quarantine, and that's testing after day 5, able to return after day 7 if no symptoms and a negative test. The good news, and especially for our younger students, is that masking will be our primary mitigation to avoid massive quarantine efforts after a close contact. And that's that for our decision tree. And by the way, we have 2 COVID designees. They've been doing an excellent job since the beginning of the pandemic, when County Public Health asked each district to identify 1 and 1 backup, so that there could really be streamlined training and then that information tunnel process. So 2 of our employees attend weekly, sometimes twice weekly meetings, just to get the latest updates, and they review all kinds of protocols. They get their own questions answered, as well as become our local experts. And they have been helping us with the required notifications. There are notifications that go to families. So anytime, either on the adult side or on the student side, that there is quarantining, those notifications go to all close contacts. And we have had a few positive cases, because it's not if we'll have them, it's when we have them. We know that there is a surge within the community, and we will see some positive cases, but we are able to contain those cases with the proper quarantining procedures.
And if I may add, thank you so much, Assistant Superintendent Myers. If I may add that none of the infections that have occurred on campus, it's infections that are coming either from the community exposure or from family exposure. We've had to date 10 students across 7 sites, and we have had 6 adult infections. 5 of those prior to the official first day of school. They did occur since the first reporting date for our staff, and that was August 9th. So between August 9th and August 12th, we had 5 adult test positive, and since the first day of school, it was 1 adult. In addition, I like to pull a plug for the Edward Boss Prado Foundation, the Fit for Fall. The foundation will also have a vaccine clinic without appointment. They will be able to provide Pfizer and also the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. And all of this information will be shared with our community. In addition to our opening of school information, we also have a couple of new legislation items we'd like to brief you on. First is AB 104. AB 104 does allow our students and families the ability to request to be retained if they attended our school the previous year. To date, we have had about 7 requests for retention, and most are at the kinder level and at the primary grades. And we follow a process. We meet with the families and discuss the pros and cons of retention, among other things. In addition to the ability to request for retention, high school students, 8th grade students and high school students have had the ability that is no longer an option, that expired as of August 16th, but they had the opportunity to change their grades, their DNF grades, and other grades if they were interested, to change from a letter grade to pass fail. That's in a nutshell, AB 104. And AB 130 is independent study. Independent study has changed from last year. It is not hybrid instruction. It is truly independent study. And students across the entire grade span have the ability to request independent study. There is oversight from the district, district teachers, but the main instruction is from Calvert and Edmentum. And we do check in on the students to check their progress and to check their engagement. We had initially about 300 families requesting this. To date, the formal transfers from our regular school to independent study are sitting at 190. And we are also waiting for additional students who have an IEP I believe it's about 30 families who requested independent study for whose children have an IEP. And so that needs to follow a process. It needs to follow an IEP meeting. And so we still have about 30 students pending. So that 190 will be growing possibly. This really concludes our welcome back, our welcome back Morgan Hill Unified in a nutshell. And I will entertain your questions if you have any.
Thank you, Dr. Garcia, and thanks for getting through both topics actually in one swoop. Any questions? Councilmember McKay.
Well, thank you for that. Thank you. I'm the new guy. I'm sorry, I talk too much right now. I'm just getting used to the setting, but I have to say, I am absolutely so impressed with the leadership that all of the Morgan Hill Unified School District staff and then the Board of Trustees have shown through probably one of the most difficult times that you will ever experience. Your plan for opening the schools, I think, is just wonderfully decisive. Your decision tree, I would actually like to have a copy of your decision tree. I think it's an invaluable tool. You'll be able to hold that in front of anybody that just doesn't understand what's going on and what you might be doing. It's, I think it's an incredible tool. And I don't know if it's something that you kind of borrowed or you created from your own, but that should be shared. That's I think moving forward, that's going to be wonderful. And I certainly don't envy you and the way you need to interact with some of your constituents, because parents are probably the toughest constituents you'll ever find. So thank you for really weathering this one. I've read the stories. You guys doing a great job. There's only a couple of questions. One is, and the other thing I want to say is I think it's fantastic that you're actually bringing the ability to get vaccinated to the school in a time like this, because you're able to catch some of those people that we know it's really such an important thing right now to get vaccinated. So I think it's wonderful. By chance, is former council member Larry Carr involved in that?
Yes, Larry Carr was our contact for the Safeway Albertson vaccine opportunity that we'll be hosting next Tuesday. In conjunction, we are also in conversations, excuse me, with County Public Health that have a mobile vaccination unit. And so I'll be getting more information at a meeting today. And so we're hoping to really, as many opportunities as we can provide that to our families.
Well, great, thank you. Again, I think everything about Morgan Hill, the school district, the city, we just do it better. I really appreciate what you're doing here. Last question. So independent studies, is there a compensation by the county for those independent study students, or does that come out of the regular budget for the rest of your curriculum?
We are able to capture that ADA.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much.
Trustee Horner.
Thank you again, President Sullivan, and thank you, Dr. Garcia and Ms. Myers for outstanding report. Yeah, it's really helpful. And to Mr. McKay's comments, leading up to our last 3 school board meetings and seeing the comments from around the country and the news and the internet chatter, we have had 0 public comments of a kind of negative nature, I would say. We've had a few parents making comments that were I would characterize as extraordinarily helpful. Say, hey, here's what I've seen, here's what I've experienced, here's ways to make it a little better. But I was personally concerned about, all right, are the anti-mask brigade going to tackle me the next time I'm at Safeway and have it out? But that just hasn't been the experience we've had. It's been a real pleasure to be on many campuses recently, and the students and staff, everybody extraordinarily chill. Can use a non-technical term, but in the circumstances, 8,000 students, 800 employees, approximately. I think there was an enrollment meeting yesterday, so Ms. Myers can probably give a more accurate number, but those are kind of just round numbers. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of people. And, considering the circumstances, it's going extraordinarily well. And it's a real credit to our community. And we need a way to communicate that out. I happened to meet, Dr. Garcia mentioned the event at Cecilia's Closet coming up. And I was there, and, in that organization, I have an operational role, not at the school district, but, planning the mobile clinic we're going to have there next Saturday, which the county will completely run. It's like there's nothing for us to do other than provide the people. But, one of the county employees was like, I don't know, I hear Morgan Hills, she didn't say backward, but practically is like, really conservative place and all this and that. And I said, well, that may be what you hear, or maybe what you think when you, drive by the corner of Tennant and Monterey or the overpasses and see a couple of the more aggressive communications. But that hasn't been my experience at all as this school year has opened. Our families are just delighted and thoughtful and helpful and working together in such a positive way. So that's something we can all be proud of. And it's not the leadership that really gets credit for that. It's the character of the community. Leadership matters, certainly, but I'm just so proud to be part of this community and how we're all working together. And not many districts have this meeting that we're having right now, the city school liaison formalized thing. I guess that's gone on long before I was involved, but it's outstanding to have this kind of dialogue and communications. But so that's just follow-ups to your comments. I'm not the new guy, but I guess my name's John. I talk too much too. But I wanted to mention that we are requiring vaccination of staff, or else, have regular testing. Be curious to see if the city has made that step. If not, I hope you do. And also for as we've opened our school board meetings to in-person attendance, one of the requirements, if you want to show up in person, be prepared to show proof of vaccination. And interestingly enough, we did that for the first time. Was that this week? I don't know. My sense of time is a mess. I don't even know what month it is, let alone what week it is. But I think we had one or two people write an email, how dare you complaints. But other than that, no issues. And oddly enough, no one showed up in person. I think people, for all the complaints about Zoom, they're pretty happy to sit home in their pajamas with their coffee cup and attend the meeting that way. But I do wonder for the city, where is the city at as far as requiring vaccination of employees? And when you look at returning to in-person public meetings of any kind, are you looking at that as well?
President, would you like me to respond?
Yes, please. That'd be great.
Okay, so right now we're kind of looking and evaluating all the different options. The county and San Jose have gone to mandatory vaccinations. So it's kind of phased in with mandatory vaccinations or testing. And then at some point, then it's either you have the vaccination or you have one of two exemptions. One is medical and one is religious. And so we are evaluating on all the options, and in order to move forward with mandatory vaccinations, the unions need to be brought into the discussion. And so our bargaining is going to happen very soon because our contracts end at the end of the year. So no decisions have been made yet, but right now we're evaluating, how and what we're going to do. And so we're going to be timing it with our return to work.
Perhaps Ms. Myers could comment on our discussion with unions on that topic, because I know we had to go through that loop and she was the point person for it.
Yeah, we began speaking actually in the spring when we had, wonderful collaboration to get some vaccine clinics here early as soon as educational sector were eligible for the vaccine. And I have just sometimes in my own mind, I mean, we talk about those time warps, Trustee Horner, but really it's only been about 4.5 months ago that people were scrambling to find an appointment. And 4.5 months, which is a pretty short period of time, we're begging and we're trying to find these people to get the vaccines. But in that era where we were still scrambling to provide access for our own employees, that really became a point for our own employees to say, before we can safely return to full in-person, because there were all kinds of discussions around the state and certainly in our county about the colors and the tiers. They said, before we can really come to the table and have those discussions, we really need that access to vaccines, which did allow us to open up, and we opened up in a hybrid environment in April, but that was following. So our discussions about vaccination as a game changer for the adults that work in the system was really important. It was early. We began asking our employees ahead of time, what is your status? And they could decline to state, right? So that was an option in those early. But we had about 91% that attested early that they were vaccinated. And so we knew we had a large percentage. We would like it to be 100, but 91 was a good starting place for us. And so over the summer, we began having conversations with our labor leaders saying, if it goes to either mandated and or we decide we want to make it a requirement, how are our labor leaders feeling about kind of the repercussions, right? Because it's not, do we not have the ability? We certainly have the ability, and there's a lot of legal standing on that, as long as there's an option, and that regular testing is the option for those who choose not to vaccinate. But it's more, and then what happens for failure to comply, that usually has to be negotiated with your labor leaders, right? And so most collective bargaining agreements have what's called progressive discipline, and how would failure to comply with either letting us know and failure to comply with kind of the regular testing alternative. And so that's really what not necessarily has to be negotiated. I think those are careful discussions always to have with labor leaders, because it will get there. It's again, not if, it will. Human beings are what they are. You're going to have some that are going to be either resistant or non-compliant in any setting, any organization. I would say here locally for our labor leaders, they were 100% on board. I was surprised how they were like, it's ridiculous for our employees not to get a vaccine. It's readily available. It's here. That was the game changer. If they don't get it and they don't comply, they can just go into unpaid status. And so our labor leaders were surprisingly easy to work with on this topic. And again, I can't speak for all labor leaders in different sectors, but ours in particular were very easy to work with, which was why we were able, as soon as the governor came out with his order, the very same day we sent out our form, because we already had that agreement that it would go into immediate unpaid status if for failure to comply. So that was our process here locally.
Any other questions before we conclude this Morgan Hill Unified portion of our agenda? Seeing no hands, we can move on. We're now on to other reports, updates. Any requests for any additional reports or updates? Or not on the agenda? Great. How about topics for future meetings? Any requests for that? Wow. Okay. Trustee Horner?
I have one, and it's kind of a difficult and hot button one right now, but that's, consequences and consideration around the potential closure of Reed Hillview, which is an issue, the County Board of Supervisors had a long meeting on recently, and I've been advocating as an elected, but not, on behalf of the district, to don't forget about the children at San Martin Gwin. There's been a whole lot of talk about all the children that live around Reed Hillview and lead exposure, which that's valid. But to me, it's a little bit like when you close one homeless encampment, you haven't actually solved homelessness. You just moved people around. And if you close one airport, you haven't solved lead getting into children. So I think it's an area where there should be some discussion and consideration between the district and the city, on what are our views together on that topic, and how do we continue to advocate for our community. And often people forget about San Martin Gwin. It's part of the Morgan Hill Unified School District. It's located outside of the city limits and has a San Martin address. But I think that's a topic worthy of some thoughtful discussion here.
Okay, got it. Any other requests? Great. Okay. Well, we will all be back here on October 15th. Hopefully we'll be in person at that point. And it is now 11:53, so we can go ahead and adjourn this meeting.
Madam President,
Yes.
I don't know if you want to ask if there's any members of the public that wish to address any of the items that we spoke about before we adjourn.
Sure. So for our members of the public who were kind enough to join us this morning, if you have any, if you'd like to request to address any of the items that we've covered this morning, please feel free to raise your virtual hand.
At
Not,
this time, there are no hands raised.
thank you. Okay, so seeing no requests, then at this point, we can go ahead and adjourn for the morning. Hope you guys all have a great weekend.
Have a
Good
great
morning,
day.
everybody.
Thank you.